Hi, Deborah Cole from AFP. I have a question for Lena and Julia, and then also for Stephen. The first question is, given the film is coming out against the backdrop of rising anti-Semitism since October 7th, and also the resurgent far right on both sides of the Atlantic. I was wondering if you could talk about who you hope to reach with the film and with what message, given that context. And Stephen, I know that you lost members of your family in the Holocaust, and I was wondering if you could talk about what it was like filming on location, particularly outside Auschwitz.
You want to start, Julia?
Yeah. Of course, we couldn't know what would happen after October 7, but when it happened, we all exchanged messages and felt that this does something to the movie we just made. And also, we decided to finish it earlier and to show it at Berlinale. So, yeah, I tried to finish it very quickly, and I just finished it 2 days before yesterday, actually, to present it here, because we feel it's the very moment for this film. What we want to achieve with the film, one thing of it is to tell people who say, we cannot hear it any longer, does there really have to be another film about this subject? Yes, there can never be enough stories to be told about this, and I think we are giving it a new perspective.
I would agree with Julia, and I think that the film is, it's about a very specific but also unfortunately very universal experience, which is it's about not just a massive, massive, massive act of violence, but the intergenerational consequences of that. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that it's very, very much about the history of anti-Semitism and the history of the Jewish experience, but it's also a story about how a legacy of violence affects anybody.
It was very an extraordinary feeling, because the generation of survivors that I knew wanted me to grow up in a free society, free of anti-Semitism, free of that legacy. They thought the victory over the Holocaust, the victory over hatred, would be to be almost unaware of it. They didn't want the children to be burdened with the knowledge of what had happened. But of course, as time has passed, the message is slightly different, is that it's too important to keep it alive and to remember, because while history may not repeat itself, as somebody once put, it rhymes. And there are similar feelings now, as we know, rising up. And the lessons of the Holocaust are what they always were. But as Lena said, they are so much to do with the personal burden and legacy of the violence and the cruelty and the depravity that humans are capable of. And I feel very lucky, and I know Lena too, we grew up in a period where you don't really experience that sort of appalling depravity. It's only through the record. So it's worth telling that story.
And I also think it's important to acknowledge that the far right, be it here or in the US, there's an incredible and shocking amount of anti-Semitic rhetoric, and there's also a shocking amount of Islamophobic rhetoric, anti-Black rhetoric, transphobic rhetoric. The goal is to isolate people based on their identities and make them feel inhuman, and that's a universal story, unfortunately.
I'm Lena from Israel. Thank you again, because it's really, really very important nowadays. And thank you, Mr. Fry, for your Christmas message to the nation, to the British nation. The whole country was watching it. The whole Israel was watching it. I mean, I have two questions. One question goes to the director. And the question is, we really have lots and lots of Holocaust films, and they didn't help much, as we see nowadays. Do you think there is any way that cinema can go on talking about Holocaust and about what's happening now in the world and in the Middle East, and it can do anything about it? Or we are just like getting together, enjoying movies, and that's it? And the second question to Mr. Fry, you were always like etalonic British-speaking gentleman, and in the movie you speak with this Polish accent. How did you feel about that? And was it difficult for you with your coming out about I'm Jewish and with this Polish accent? Thank you so very much.
Yeah. I think we should still try. Probably we can all agree that films can make the world worse. That is easy to understand. So let's also assume films can make the world a better place, because if we don't try this on and on, my whole life doesn't make sense, so I need to believe in it.
Yes, thank you for the... Yes, yeah, it was exciting because I had to be a Polish, I'd have a Jewish accent, a Polish accent, and underneath it an American accent too, because his English was learnt not in England, but in New York. And so it was a challenge, but it was an enchanting one, and I was helped so much by everybody's support, and it was a thrilling experience, I have to say.
I'm Toby Axelrod from Jewish Telegraphic Agency, which is based in New York, but I live here. I thought your performances were amazing, and the script was fantastic. I wanted to ask Ms. Dunham how you prepared for this role, and were either of you inspired by anyone in particular, anyone's story? There are so many stories out there of people who've gone back and searched for their roots.
For me, the way that I prepared for the role was to talk to Lily Brett, who's the author of the book that it's based on, Too Many Men. I mean, it's no secret that this is an autobiographical novel for her, and so I felt like I was and she's such a beautiful person and such an important chronicler of Jewish life. I feel that she belongs in the class of writers like Philip Roth, who've been able to explain
And she's here.
the intricacies. She's an amazing person. Lily's, if anyone wants to pick up something that has an incredible ability to explain the Jewish experience and the human experience, Lily's books are that. And so she very generously spent time with me on Zoom and shared aspects of her life that weren't in the book. I just wanted to know things like, what was it like to grow up in your house? How did you relate to your mother? What made you crazy about your parents? Not just the kind of, I think the thing that's so, what I love about this film is, yes, it's about the absolute horrors of the Holocaust and things that we can never, ever, ever forget. And it's also about the kind of mundane and universal love inside of families. And so just learning about Lily's relationship with her father, Max, her relationship with her mother, that was the bedrock of this character. And she gave me so much to work with. And by the time I got to Poland, I really felt like I had the information I needed. And my job was really just to be present for Stephen while he did this kind of Herculean feat of transforming himself in this way.
I think that I've always said there are four aspects of humanity that explain who people are and what nations are, and they are the food they eat, their cuisine, they are the music they listen to, they are the clothes they wear, and they are the food they eat. And Lily has a genius for using, in the lightest way, food and clothes and music as indicators of personality and so on. And food is particularly important. If you were of Edek's generation, food was rare. You've seen all your life people fighting, even killing each other for food in a way that none of us in this room, I hope, have ever seen.
And it was amazing to see how, beautifully said, Stephen, and to see how connected Julia and Lily are, and the way that, you know, Lily's book, Too Many Men, has some very specific aspects that didn't make it into the film, and Julia and her co-writer John made such smart choices about what needed to be there, what was essential, and really gave us the most beautiful blueprint, and then took us on an adventure like the one that these characters have. And that was, I think, one of the most magical things about the job that we get to do, is how much of the world we get to see in a way that we wouldn't otherwise, and how you're welcomed in a film crew and educated, and that was really a magical part of this journey.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ross. I run the student organization Campus TV in central Germany. And my question is for Ms. Dunham. You usually work in very comedic heavy aspects. Yes, this is classed as a tragic comedy. The question is this a signifying change, maybe, that you're going to go into different genres like drama or other ways? It still has aspects of comedy, yes, but maybe is this a change to new ways for you?
Oh, well, I always love the idea of experimenting with genre, and one of the reasons I feel so lucky is I was surprised that Julia thought of me for the movie. I mean, I joked earlier, I was like, but what about Margot Robbie? I was like, you could have anybody that you wanted. And so the fact that she felt that I was capable of doing something like this, that I deserved to be there with an actor of Stephen's caliber, it was a very special experience for me. And even if I, you know, just go back to playing total goofballs, it's something I will cherish for the rest of my life. But no, I'm currently in production on something that is absolutely and completely without a message, so don't worry.
We were one of the very, very few who got granted a shooting permit right outside of the fence of Auschwitz. You never shoot on the ground of Auschwitz, which is very good, but we were allowed to shoot just outside. And they told us, you can have it, but you cannot change the dates. And then we kind of, we did our producers' work. Julia and I consulted, Lena, Julia and I as producers, we sat together and said, how can we turn it around? Yeah. We changed the whole plan, and then in the end, we made it. We shot the scene outside. The scene inside is actually shot right next to Auschwitz on a soccer ground, and we put up a lot of green screens. We wanted to be close. We wanted to be under the impression of just leaving that place that really does something to any human being with a soul and a heart. So we shot on that soccer ground, and till last week it looked terrible because you could see like that the VFX was not there yet. But Julia and I, we have just approved the DCP, and I think you two have never seen how it looks. And I think it looks magnificent. Like, if you have not seen the VFX, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand.
Wow.
The ones who have seen it. Okay, good. Yeah. Some.
It was very smart to have us shoot the scene inside of the death camp so nearby, because there was a feeling amongst the crew, amongst the cast, that came with being there, being in Auschwitz and being around the death camp, that I actually, of course we're actors and our job is to recreate hard emotions, but I don't know if you could fully recreate that feeling if you were on a soundstage in Berlin. And so even though we weren't inside, we were so close to our experience, our days-long experience, walking by, driving by the camp, that was still hanging over us in a very important way.
There was a marvelous irony, really, in that the film takes place in Poland, behind the Iron Curtain. Yes, there's Solidarność, but it's 1989, 1990, Marxist housing for the workers, a very grim architecture. It's very hard to find that in Poland now because Poland has undergone an economic miracle, rather like the German economic miracle of the 50s and 60s. And the irony is, in order to find places that look grim and terrible and Marxist, you have to go to Germany. so we went to film in Gera and Halle in the old East in order to find something that looked Polish.
Well, I have to say, my apartment in Hollow was so nice, I wanted to buy it. I wanted to just move there. I had such a glamorous apartment. I thought you could never afford this in a city. The ceilings were so high.
I loved Halle too.
Yeah.
But he's right. We found everything we needed there. Yes,
It's true.
And in Berlin.
Yeah.
It's true, we were here a lot.
Yeah.
So some of our crew came in very tired.